let me say a few words about her. Dr. Inni Kaur, or Sardani Inni Kaur, is a resident of Connecticut. She is the creative director at Sikh Research Institute. She has served in several capacities in Sikri. ਭੈਣ ਮਨਜੀਤ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਭੈਣ ਮਨਜੀਤ ਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਲਓ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਾਈਕ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਹਾਂਜੀ she is the creative director of Sikri. She has worked in various capacities including chair of board and most recently she was the CEO. बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग गल है इन्होंने वास्ते कि she is very much into interfaith and women's issue awareness. ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਿਸਟ ਆਫ ਅਚੀਵਮੈਂਟ ਗਿਣਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਓਰੀਜਨਲੀ ਭੇਜੀ ਸੀ ਈਮੇਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਪਰ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ she is office of she has addressed US office of Pentagon chaplain several times. She has spoken at Yale, Fairfield, Columbia, other universities and has represented the Connecticut Board of Education and local police department. She is an author, she is a poet, she is a painter. And she is also into creative artistry, publishing several children books, especially Journey with the Gurus, where she talks about teaching of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Her other children books include Sakhi, Time with Nani Ji, Thank You, Vaheguru, Daddy's Turban, Story of Us. So ਇੱਦਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ and interestingly she is very much involved in transcreating Shabad and the writings of Bhai Singh Ji. In fact, that was the reason we have asked her to be here today. She is a prolific spiritual writer ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਚਿਕ ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. She has also been featured in various documentaries related to Sikh faith. She worked on I See No Stranger, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਵੈਲਰੀ ਕੋਰ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੋਈ ਮੂਵੀ ਬਣਾਈ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਡਾਕੂਮੈਂਟਰੀ. ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ Early Sikh Art and Devotion. She has also been part of and worked for on exhibition on Guru Gobind Singh Sahib, Emperor Prophet, and she has co-curated the exhibit Guru Nanak Sahib, Oneness to One Identity. ਤੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਉਹ ਐਕਟਿਵ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਇੰਟਰਫੋਰਥ ਸਦਰਨ ਕਨੈਟੀਕਟ ਦੇ and she is on the editorial board of ਬੜਾ important ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਮੈਗਜ਼ੀਨ ਹੈ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਉਹਦੇ. She also is a member of Munshi Bishan Singh Kosher Foundation. She is on the expert advisory board on Sikh Family Center and she is Justice of Peace. Oh gosh, so much and so much I am getting tired, so much. Thank you, Panji. You have done an amazing job. She is a unique transitional, she follows a unique transitional path. Interestingly, she was born in Kuwait. She has lived in New Zealand, Australia, and Greece before she relocated to United States. And presently, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ, she lives in US, Connecticut. ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਵਕਤ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ 50 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਹੈਗੇ ਪਾਰਟਿਸਪੈਂਟ ਅੱਜ ਤੇ ਬਥੇਰੇ ਅੱਜ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖ ਇੰਟੈਲੈਕਚੁਅਲ ਤੇ ਟੀਚਰਸ ਐਂਡ ਰਾਈਟਰਸ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਐਜ਼ ਆਈ ਗੋ ਅਲੋਂਗ ਆਈ ਟਰਾਈ ਟੂ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਐਵਰੀਬਾਡੀ ਬਟ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਦੱਸਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੈਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਆਂ ਕਿ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਡੀਪੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਤੋਂ. He is a regular contributor to Sikh Review. ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਉਹ ਅੱਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰੀ ਵੀ ਭਰਨਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਪਰਸਨੈਲਿਟੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਤੋਂ ਜੁਆਇਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਪ੍ਰਭਜੋਤ ਕੌਰ. She is the author of Women Liberation as seen from the perspective of Sikh point of view. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਬੜੇ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਬੰਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਪਰ ਆਈ ਗੋ ਅਲੋਂਗ ਐਜ਼ ਆਈ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਐਂਡ ਐਜ਼ ਆਈ ਗੈਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਇਨ ਬਿਟਵੀਨ. ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਦੇਰ ਨਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਇਆ ਮੈਂ ਦੋ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸਪੈਕਟਡ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਸਰਦਾਰਨੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਕੌਰ ਟੂ ਪਲੀਜ਼ go ahead and start her talk on Bhai Veer Singh ji. Thank you, Bhai ji, for agreeing and coming here. Please.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to try and share my screen so that we can enjoy the presentation. Do you see my screen now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Let me put it on full screen. So it's actually a real honor to speak about the man who is in my consciousness. And when Dr. Satdeva said, you know, I would like you to come and speak, and he gave me some dates, and I said, I would like to do it in December because it is the month of Pitaji's birthday. It's our 148th birth anniversary, which we celebrated on December 5th. So in this presentation, what I would like to do is present details, a few details of Bhai Veer Singh Ji's life, and highlight various aspects of his Sikh and Punjabi life. So there are two lives here. I want to share a little bit about him as a person, his vastness, his grandness, and maybe a few intimate details of his spiritual experience. Through this presentation, I hope you will get a flavor of his politics, his institution development also. And my ardent wish is that by the end of this presentation, you will recognize for yourself that the title, Sixth River of Punjab, why is he called that? And may you also refer to him as that. How did he inspire the masses? How did he rise above religiosity, education, and geography? And what were his contributions to Sikh and Punjabi literature? So I want to begin with you. How did my journey begin with this man? This is not an ordinary presentation, which I give many presentations, but this is not one of those. This is a very special presentation because of this man. And I want to begin this with you, telling you how I was introduced to him. The first man I let into my consciousness was Professor Puran Singh. And up until the time of Puran Singh, I did not consider myself a Sikh. I was born in a Sikh family, but I was on many different paths and I did not consider myself a Sikh. In fact, if anything else, I was very close to Buddhism and Sufism, and I nearly submitted to Sufism. So in walks in Puran Singh in my life with a book, and I was so moved by this man as how he could write with such sensitivity. And as I went into more and more of Puran Singh, I realized that Purans who brought Puran Singh to the faith, to Sikhi, was Bhai Veer Singh. And obviously, so the man who you love, this man is writing about the influence of another man, and I want then to meet this other man. And I tried reading his books because at that time I did not read Punjabi. In fact, I did not even speak because I was born and raised outside, went to, so I didn't really have a command of the language. I read a couple of his translations and they did not move me at all. For a lack of a better word, they just left me cold and I left it. At the age of 46, when I began, when I started to learn Gurmukhi. In 3 weeks, I learned the alphabet. And would you believe that the first book that I picked up was Guru Nanak Chamatkar? Now, you must appreciate the fact that I can barely join letters, alphabets. So I have a Keda on one side, I have a legal writing pad, I have a dictionary, and I have Guru Nanak Chamatkar. Every sentence took me a minimum of at least half an hour to decipher. And yet I continued and pursued because this was the man who actually my mentor, Puran Singh, loved and revered. So I wanted to get to know this man. And that's how my journey began with Pitaji. He was Bhai Veer Singh to me. Then he became Bhai Veer Singh, and now he's Pitaji. I have a story to tell. You know, when you fall in love with someone, you want to know everything about that person. And I, of course, then wanted to meet everyone who he had met, who was in contact with him. And I met Premanti. And she said to me, Beta, how did you meet? She said, you know, after she spoke to me, she said, Pitaji would say that people don't need to come and meet me. If they want to meet me, they'll meet me in my books. You met him in your books. I said, I did. She said, because tu Jammi Pali Bar, I had no Sikhi influence. And yet, she said, you call him Pitaji and you went through so much. So I met Pitaji through his books. I continue to meet him, and he has made me fall in love with Bani even more so. So I begin firstly about the first slide. It's about a personal angle of his. What is his inspiration? Every person who, you know, every writer, every poet has an inspiration. And this, I feel, encapsulates what he is feeling. He said, Sine Janadi Kitchkai, the ones who have that kitch, the ones who have that pang of love, that kitch that they want to do something, that their eyes are starstruck and they're flowing and wanting to be with their love. They don't sit. They're constantly moving as to how to go and meet with their love. They never rest. It's like a river that is flowing and they want to go and meet their love. But here the focus is that union. And that's what Pitaji is talking about, that union with Paramatma. And so for that union, you walk untiringly. You don't worry. Din hai ki raat hai ki ki hai gai, chakkar hai gai, mi perya. It doesn't really matter. It is really that you want to be with your love, because, and that is that kitch, that pull we all talk about. And you know, in Bani, it's Raj na chahu, Mukat na chahu. What do I want? I just want your love. That's what it is. And that's what he writes about throughout his entire, all his writings are that I just want you. I want to feel you. I want your presence. I want to be close to you. That is about, I feel, that is where he draws his inspiration from. That is his inspiration for and continues to do, and the people he needs to change. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what people have said about him. And I want to talk to you first about who Taniram Chatrik is. So Taniram Chatrik is you know, in 1935, there was a phenomena in Punjab called the Progressive Poets. And Taniram Chatrik is his pen name. Chatrik is the leader of that movement. And this is what he writes. He said that Pitaji, Bhai Veer Singh Ji, is love incarnate. Think about it. What does it mean? You know, in Hinduism, you have that Vishnu and Shiva and all that. Those are those are, you know, divine incarnates. And he's writing that Pitaji, Bhai Veer Singh, is love incarnate. That una de vicho pyar hi pyar chal raha hai. That's the river of love that is flowing through him. Now, the entire movement that came after him, that Renaissance movement that united Punjab in that literature sense, is all due to him. And it is, he says he's a poet, yes, but he is no ordinary poet because he's a saint. So we have that in Bani, Sant Sipai, and this is that saint poet. He was a saint before he was a poet. And so this is that incredible tribute which I wanted to share with you. And there's one more which I wanted to talk to you about, which Mr. Kohli wrote about him. Oh, what is this? Yeah. And he writes, you know, on Pitaji, he says that his writings, every poet that has come after him, owes him everything. And he says he is that, if I may use the analogy of a European poet, he's that Dante, he's that Emerson of European poetry, because everything comes after him. And that's how we need to get to understand him. Now, he said he's affected every writer, because the printing press, that literature came after him. So everyone was an apprentice after him, everyone followed him, and many then left and began their own presses. So I can tell you, it's been 148 years, and I yearn to write like him. He is my mentor, my master. And you know, from time to time, when someone says, "Teri article which Pitaji di chalak aa rahi hai," main unhanu matha tekni hai. I said, because that is my wish, my dream, to be able to have just a little bit of how he has written. And the last one I think you will probably know is Dr. Gurmat Singh. What he has written about Pitaji. And this is really important, and I've underlined those two lines. He writes, Bhai Singh stands as a link between two eras, between two traditions of Punjabi learning, the old and the new. So I want to talk a little bit about that. What is that old and new? He stands between, where is he situated in Punjab at the moment? He's right where there's conversions happening by the Christians, and he's right in the middle of what's happening with the Brahma Samaj movement. He's right in the middle of that. So he's seeing that this is his reality. And he's very, very aware of the religious angles which are operating within the Sikh frame, the Mahants, what's happening with them. This is that period of Sikh history. He's also very aware of British imperialism, what they are doing to the Sikhs. And then he's connecting the two eras. And this is what I want to talk to you about, the two eras, because it comes in his writing. What are the two eras? The two eras are what Punjab was during the Ranjit Singh period and what Punjab was now. And he writes in Rana Surat Singh, he said Punjab, and you know, Rana Surat Singh is through the voice of a widow. And he said Punjab was widowed after Maharaja Dalip Singh's death. It was shattered, it was broken, and he wanted to instill that spirit. And then there's another two eras which he's joining. One is the formal era, which is, you know, his Christian missionary upbringing. So he's very much aware of that, you know, the formal education which is happening right now in the Christian schools, and aware of the style. But he's also extremely aware of the Gyani system, of the Sampradaya system. That is what he is. And he brings those two together. He merges those two traditions together to give that space to this form of literature. It's also very interesting because everyone told him that he should write not in Punjabi, because Punjabi was a language of the rural people and Braj was a language of the elite. And yet he chose to write in Punjabi. He was told to write in English. So he has a perfect command of the English language, and yet he chose to write in Punjabi. So that tells you a lot about the man, of what his mission was. And, you know, more than anything else, this man is an institution, and I hope you will get to see that in my next slide. A little bit about him, where he was born, you know, his age, his parents. It's interesting, there's, you know, I put in a quote there of who's his ancestor was. He's from during the Holocaust, during the Kalukaras. There was the Koramal, the Mitamal, who who sided with the Sikhs. He was the governor of Lahore. And he was also the friend of Jassa Singh Ahluwalia. Many of us have ancestors in our families who we are proud of or who mean a lot in Sikh history. But few of us, follow that legacy. But his legacy himself, with his parents, with his father, with his Nanaji, with Dadaji, is impeccable. And that's where his knowledge and his deep background comes from. Yes, he's a poet, he's a writer, he's a researcher, editor, theologist. I could go on. But the one thing which I missed writing in here was his deep knowledge of the rags, because all his poems, would you believe, he has made them that this is in this rag, and he's made notes of them, how they should be sung. So a couple of years back, I was doing a presentation. It was at a conference, and they said, we want to get a singer to sing at this. And I said, well, it's a Sikh event. I don't want Barney in there because they're going to be non-Sikhs and they're going to be shoes and everything. Can you sing something from Bhai Singh's? And they said, sure. And I sent them, 4 of his poems, and I sent them this essay as well and annotations. And these people are steeped into Gurmat Sangeet. And they said, we've never seen anything like this before. He had notes and that depth of knowledge. So that is something I found out only by accident, because I wanted them to sing. And because this is not my subject, music is not my subject. But I found out by accident the knowledge of this incredible man. Yes, a little bit about his background. He's from a distinguished family. A lot of people say he was an elitist, possibly because his father was a doctor. He came from a well-to-do family. But look at his training. He was extremely well-read, well-versed in the Gyani system, as well as in Sanskrit, Braj, Farsi, Urdu, English. So all these things he has acquired. He stood first in his entire district. A little bit about his background. The padres in his school absolutely loved him. And more than anything else, they wanted him to be a preacher, a Christian preacher. And when the padre left, the most prized possession, what does a preacher have? His Bible. He gave it to Pidaji and he said, keep it, and maybe one day you will use it. So and he was, and that happened at the age of 16. For a priest to give a 16-year-old boy his Bible says a lot. He was a linguist. I mean, there are a lot of doctors on this call. He was also a doctor of medicine. He did not practice it, but he knew, he had that knowledge. A bit about his personality, and he writes about this himself. And he says, he never spoke on stage. You will not have his recordings. When somebody told me, we have a recording of one of his talks, and I said, are you sure? Because everyone that I've spoken to said he did not want to be recorded at all. He never went on stage. He never spoke at gurdwaras. He met people. Every day he met people from 5 to 6:30, but he never gave a public talk. And he writes in here this about himself, that, my conversation, this is a perfume that I have, and I cannot conceal it. I want it to be hidden. But this perfume has gone all around. It travels far and it brings recognition. And you know what happens with this recognition? He writes, it interferes. It interferes with my thinking. It interferes with my spirituality, with my own self-realization. I want to remain concealed. It's not a matter of mood. It's not an expression of constraint. It is shunning of society and fame. At the Sikh Educational Conference in Bombay, He was there in 1950. Yeah, he was there in 1950. And I know this because I've been told these stories from my family, extended family in Bombay. He was at the conference and everybody wanted him to come on stage to say something. And he just got up where he was, stood around, folded his hands and said, that's it. So the humility of the man was one of a rare trait to have at that time. Every ragi that was in that era would come to Amritsar to be able to sing with him. I remember my uncle is my father's uncle, Mamaji. He's Dr. Darshan Singh Mani, is also extremely bright, scholar. He was a Harvard professor and he was an authority on American poets. So when Uncle was going to England to study, his father took him to Pidaji's house in Amritsar before going to Delhi, and Pidaji blessed him. And they didn't know. But this story, I've heard it's repeated multiple times, how people, the community in the sense, the community went to him when their child was leaving for going for higher studies. They went to him for his blessings. So this was a little bit I wanted to give you about the man. So what do his writing symbolize, and what is the symbolisms about in his writing? His writing talks about nature. He is the first, after the Guru period, after the Gurus, we find no other poetry that has given a voice to the elements. The birds, the animals, flowers, rivers, springs, seas, mountains, they all have a voice. And he has brought that out in that. He helped, and of course there is that kitsch which he talks about, that longing. And his poetry is also about love and separation, but his is very inspirational. It's not an intellectual. Yes, people will say he's an intellectual writer, but he's a spiritual writer. He is someone who has experienced something and he writes from that place. And in his poem, in Jamna's Quest, which he writes on the Dasve Pacha, this is when Pacha goes to Jamuna, the river, and bathes in the river. And this is the voice then of Jamuna speaking. And she's like now saying, did he bathe in me? Was it an illusion? Or did I bathe in him? Think about it. Did he bathe in me or did I bathe in him? So vast is he. And then she goes looking for him. Jamna goes looking for him, and she goes up to the Himalayas. She goes up to the to the ethereals, and she goes everywhere looking for him and asking people, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And they all tell her that he is no more. He's gone to the ethers. And then the yogis tell her that we are here. You don't need him. And she says, no, I don't want you. It is only him that I want. And then she writes, if it is not him, if he does not revisit Ponta, and this torment, this pain was to awaken me, then I welcome this everlasting pain, this eternal pain, for it is only he that I seek. So in his name, I flow. In his name, I will wait. This is that kitsch, that longing, which is that divine longing. And this longing, which he has put in the voice of a woman, in the voice of nature, in the voice of Jamuna. So love, separation, that is his theme of what he is writing. He's written so much, but I want you to just look at the titles which he has given his poem, his collections. Lehra Dehar, Bijliyan Dehar. Bijliyan Dehar is probably the least read one because that's where his political writings, yes, he was political, that is where his political writings are there. and Mere Saiyan Jio is his later version, where there's a great virag in them. And the two which I want to talk to you about is Kant Maheli and Preet Veena, because these are the two. I mean, I've translated a few of the other ones, but these two I have translated, and I don't even, that Kant Maheli is really coming from a person who is really drenched in pyar, jada rangya hoya hai. And it is that nature and the seasons. He has used the months to talk about the longing and the separation. And because I'm working on Guru Nanak Sahib's Barama and Kant Maheli, there is such a trend in them, that separation, except Pitaji's is a lot stronger in the sense, because I connect with it, because it's a feminine, it's a woman voice. It's the woman that is longing and what all she goes through while she's waiting for her beloved to come back. And it's an exquisite piece. It is about yearning. It's about anguish. It is about abandonment. It's then about devotion, surrender, ego annihilation, union. And then the last bit is that "O te tere andar hi siga, chakti maar." And that's that realization after having gone through this entire thing. And that is where Vani is. Sab mein jyot. The jyot is within you. You don't have to look anywhere else. And that's how he brings that whole thing together. And Kant Maheli, if you get a chance, is a brilliant essay by Puran Singh before Kant Maheli. No, sorry, before Preet Veena. And if you don't read that essay, you will not be able to understand Preet Veena. So what is Preet Veena? Preet Veena is about a very sensitive, what he writes, full yukti, that means a blossoming young maiden and a lad, a moon lad, Chand, he called, and how their love, they have been separated by a zalim and they're captured, and how the nature then, the elements then conspire to free them and then take them up into the heavens, into the ethereal, when they go up into the cosmos, jai jai hundi hote, because the lovers have come. And his writing is that love is divine, and divine love is to be experienced in the human form through the relationships. I mean, that to me is that beauty where that physical relationship is transcended into a spiritual one. Okay, we talk about his novels now. Up until him, we had no Punjabi novels. There was nothing written in this genre. And what is so interesting in all of these, in all his novels, is the protagonist, the main character, is a woman. Think about it. He's 17 years old when he writes Sundari. He's 35 years old when he writes Rana Surat Singh. Or it's Rana Surat Singh, but it's actually the voice of the Rani Raj Kaur. Every one of these has a woman. And he writes with such sensitivity that I am amazed. I cannot understand how he can feel that, the pain of a woman. How can he be so sensitive and write it? And I'll speak to you a little bit more when I get into each of these novels, how he's able to capture that. And this is that sick inspiration. He writes with history and fiction and everything in that Punjabi language. That language, yes, it's 100 years old, but that language is sweet. I have a confession. Since COVID, I've been very blessed that I'm working with a Punjabi tutor from Amritsar. You know, I have 2 classes a week, and all I read is Pidaji's. And he is enjoying that too, because the language is so beautiful. Yes, it's old, but there's a beauty and depth in that language, which we seem to have lost. That exquisiteness, that fragrance is in there. So this is really interesting, because Pidaji gave the title of Subhag Ji Da Safar, Hathi Baba Nod Singh. And while he was there, that is how he titled it. But then after him, you know, and forgive me, there are many men on the scene. When the men take charge, they feel, no, we've got to put Baba Nod Singh first, not recognizing and actually not reading what this book is all about. And I want to talk to you about the first chapter of this book. What does this first chapter tell us? It's about a young widow, a young Jain widow. She's 18, 19, and how the world conspires, because she's lost. So she gets first into the hands of the yogi, who takes her for a ride, steals all her money, leaves her on the top of a mountain to die. Second, we have Miss Damali. Then we have the preacher, the Christian preacher. Keep in mind what's happening in Punjab at the moment. We have the Brahma Samaj movement. We have the Christian movement going on. So now look at this in that light. So then we have the padre, who takes her under his wing and changes her name to Miss Damali. Then, she is now Miss Damali. And then they want her to get married to a Christian. And she says, in there she writes, I don't want to marry these low caste, black looking men who have converted into Christianity. So he is actually telling us who all are converting to Christianity and how is there still a stigma. So she leaves, she runs away from there, and where does she end up? In a Maulvi's house. And she's now converted to Fatima. So we've gone through the Brahmo, we've gone through the Brahma Samaj, we've gone through the Christianity, we are now in the Muslim. So she's gone through all this. And then, of course, the Maulvi wants to marry her and everything. And so then Jamuna falls into, she commits suicide, and she goes into the river and she jumps. When she jumps, on the side, there is a young sick man. And it's described very beautifully. He's immersed in prayer in Sukhmani Sahib, he's reciting, and he sees this body floating, runs, gets her out, and revives her. And of course, she wants to die and everything. There's an exquisite dialogue, why she must live and everything. And then at the end, she asks him, well, who's going to look after me? Can I come with you? And he says, no, you have to look after yourself. And he instills in her that the Jyot is within and everything is within you and the strength is within you. And she goes within and finds her anchor. So the part of that Sikhi, that you don't need anybody else, Sara kuch tode andar hega. Find that. And also what it is, keeping in mind what is happening, that when while this is the voice of a woman, it is when the community is lost, when the community does not have an anchor, is not immersed in Sikhi, everyone is going to take that community, that person for a ride. This is his entire, in all his novels, that is what his crux is, to uplift the community, to make them believe that they are the true heirs of Pacha. That has always been his thing. And who is then Baba Nod Singh? because this is the voice. And then there are many other chapters, and Baba Naud Singh is there. But who is Baba Naud Singh? So Baba Naud Singh is not a man. It is a divine in human form. So this book is through that, through the human form, he is explaining, he is sharing those Sikhi principles and what the behavior of a Sikh lifestyle is. It's all about service, it's all about sacrifice. And yes, there is a vibrating, there's a vibrating music in this, particularly in this book. And you feel that pulse when you read this book. It's like you want that in your life. And how he takes this woman from the brink of suicide into this incredible woman who is now leading because she has found that strength within herself. So if anything, I've only translated chapter 1 of this book because Jamuna spoke so much to me. It was because I was lost and how I went into so many other faiths. I went into every other faith, finding that anchor. And when I found my anchor and I found Sikhi, I found my anchor, I was home. So the first chapter really resonated with me, and that's why, I translated it. You always want to work with things which are, mean so much to you. And now I come to Rana Surat Singh. This is the most dense poem. It's 14,068 lines of poetry, sheer poetry. There has been never a book written like that. And up until now, there hasn't been a book. So what is Rana Surat Singh? Here I feel what Pitaji has done is through the relationship of Rana Surat Singh and Rani Raj Kaur, he's taken that relationship and said, from that physical to that spiritual, how do you journey through that love, that spirituality that is very much part of every relationship. This is, and he did this through tracks. So these were tracks that would go out into his paper. There are 35 cantons in here. And I've been wanting to read this book for a very, very long time. Particularly, I was fortunate, the Southern asked me to do editing of Gurmukh Jeevan, which was written by his longtime secretary, Man Singh Gyani. And that book was translated and they sent it to me for editing. And when I was editing this book, what I read that people from Hong Kong, people from England, people from India, everywhere, whenever they would get a tract, especially the one from Hong Kong and England, they said that when they got a tract, that the first thing that they wanted to do when they landed on Indian soil was to go to Amritsar to find who was this man. He never wrote his name on any of his things which he printed in the press. So nobody knew it was him, except that close circle who knew. But when they went out, nobody knew that this was his writing. So I wanted to know, what was it that the person sitting in Hong Kong couldn't wait to come to India to meet him for that? So when I took this book into my bedroom on the 1st of January of this year. I've cried just about every night reading this book. So two things for me that stand out. For other people, there are multiple things that stand out. For me, it is his incredible explanation of the khans, is how the Rani goes through them and how the elements speak. And it's not that he's saying this is Dharam Khand and this is Gyan Khand. It is actually, you feel it. You're walking through them and you are realizing it yourself, oh, this is that Khand. It is through there. That is it. And then the second thing is in Canton 30 to 33. He explains what Naam, Dan Ishnan is. You know, I don't know if you know that Nam Japo Kirt Karo Vanchako, he penned that. It's not in the Guru Granth Sahib, Nam Japo Nam Japo Kirt Karo Vanchako. This came from his Nam Dan Ishnan. And in these three cantons, what he has explained, the journey of how a Jagyasu, how a seeker can get, if you choose, your first practice is satsang, then is satsang the method, and the third one is satsang, the path, the Gurmukh path. And I'm translating these three right now. And I want to tell you that Ishnan has always been something I have not understood. Intellectually, I've understood it, but deep, that meaning, I have never been able to understand that. I've asked many. And here he takes you through Ishnan of the body, Ishnan of the mind, of the intellect, and of the Atma. And he walks you through that Ishnan and then he walks you through the same way of Dan and the same way of Nam. And then he connects it to, because in Sidko, it is Nam, Dan, Ishnan, Gurmukh. These three things are the path of a Gurmukh, and he walks you through them. So if any one of you want to get to that state of that Gurmukh, I would urge you to read cantons 30 to 32. Hopefully my translation will come out in a couple of months, but it'll be pale compared to what he has written. Every piece in there is like a jewel. It is an awakening. It is that aha moment. And and you say, who can even think this? Who can even write this? And it's such a gift that someone has written this path so clearly and in such simple language that we can each understand it. You know, I want to tell you a story about Rana Surat Singh because it was written in this book, Yani, written by his secretary. He said, Baba Sumer Singh, he's the Mahant from Patna. He's a very educated scholar. And he had a conversation with Pitaji's father, and he said, you know, I'm going to come and set this boy straight because he should be writing in Braj. And this Punjabi is a language for rural folk, and nobody's going to be reading his things. So Baba Sumer Singh goes to Pitaji, and he asks him, okay, read me something, what you're working on. And Pitaji reads him a couple of stanzas of Rana Surat Singh. And the man went quiet. And he's left saying to his father, it would be a mistake to move this boy to Braj Bhasha. But so moved was Baba Sumer Singh that the next day he wrote in Punjabi, and he came to Bhai Veer Singh to read it to him. And on Baba Sumer Singh's obituary, this was printed in his obituary. It reads, his fondness for Punjabi writing in later life was created in this great scholar and aged poet Bhai Veer Singh. So Baba Sumer Singh started writing in Punjabi because of Pitaji. So think about the influence of someone, a learned scholar, and Pitaji at this age is only 35. So a 35-year-old young man has that capacity to write like that. So this is his creative genius. You know, we all know about the Persian genres. This is a new genre of poetry. which he gave. This is his gift to Punjabi poetry. Turai, like the Rubai. So for people who are fond of poetry will appreciate this, that where did the Turai in Punjabi literature come from? Well, it was from him. So I think it would not be wrong if we regarded him as the Bhai Gurdas of the 20th century. You know, right up until now, that what I have talked to you about was actually Punjabi literature. It was not Sikh literature. While, yes, it had elements of Sikhi and Sikh principles, but it was not Sikh literature. Now I come to Sikh literature and what his contributions. Sikhandi Bhagat Mala, which is the explanation of Bhai Mani Singh's explanation of Bhai Gurdas's Varans. So we have taken this now to the next level. So he knows how to carry the tradition forward of that era and how to connect the dots in history and the interpretations over the centuries and how he's connecting the two eras. He's linking them. So his work is, you know, history, spirituality, social and political, all this is mixed together and everything seems to flow seamlessly. And you feel that in all his writings. You know, he's editing, he is explaining, he's doing the commentaries. I mean, right now we are all into this, you know, Suraj Prakash. There is this podcast that is going on, which is doing very well. There's a lot of interest in Suraj Prakash. Well, people may not be aware of it, but it was him. It was his work to bring together the 16 volumes of poetic Sikh history. He's the one who annotated it. He's the one who edited it and brought it to us. So look at that knowledge and the will to take somebody else's work and present it to the community. What does that talk about his vastness? I mean, never mind what he's writing, but then to take somebody else's amazing work and bring it to us. I honestly don't know who else would do it. Now we talk about the Puratan Janam Sakis and all those Sakis which are coming after that. Well, he's the one who annotated them and put them into this form and edited them. So think about that contribution which he has done. And today, most of the Janam Sakis which we follow, they're coming from that tradition of what he did in 1926. So I don't even know how to begin this with what he has done for us in the Guru Granth Sahib. Right now, you know, at the Sikh Research Institute, we've taken on a project. It's a 20-year project where we are annotating and translating every word of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, and you know, doing the transcreation, commentaries, and everything. And these books, his work is invaluable. If you get to read that, it's on the website, and you look into the footnotes, you will find multiple entries of his work. This is what he did. I mean, he was only able to do his commentaries only go up to, I think it is page 546 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, because after that he passed away. So there are 7 volumes of commentaries. I am told I believe Sardar Surinder Singh has spoken to you already, but he says that he has yet to read a better explanation of the Japji than Pitaji's. And Surinder Singh teaches that. So and I've read it too, and it's actually too intense for me. I have not been able to appreciate the depth of it. Then his dictionary of words, his explanation of Santhya. I used his Santhya for 2 of my own understandings of the Bani. For Siddh Ghosh, I used Pilaji's, and for the Lamas. You know, after I finished Siddh Ghosh, which took me about a year and I think a year and a half to do. I said, I'm going to take a break. And right when I was closing the book, I looked on my right hand side and there was his explanation, commentaries on the lamas. And I looked at the first word and it was Pehleri Lam, just the word Lam. And in the English language, we've translated that as round. And in that 8-line explanation, there was no word round. I mean, he had multiple explanations. And of course, so I ended up, working with that Barney, or that Barney working with me. And if you haven't read that, I would strongly urge you to actually read the essay that goes before that. And at the end of that essay, Pidaji writes that lava is that Barney, is that diamond that pierces other diamonds. So lava is that Barney that you need to understand so that you can understand the rest of the Barneys. Now, I am still struggling just to understand that depth and what he meant by that sentence, because he doesn't write frivolously. His every sentence is very, very deep. So obviously there's something I am missing as much as it was a totally different experience for me, the way he explained it and the way I have translated it. But I understand that depth. But I'm not able to see what he is saying in that, to be able to write that this is the Barney you really need to understand. You really need to live it or feel it so that you can understand the others. So we come then to the Chamatkars. It's a recreation of Sikh history. And what he did is he took everything available in literature, in history, in the historical accounts, and he intermixed it with Gurbani and presented it in a way that the 20th century, and even now in the 21st century, people could understand it. He knew people couldn't afford these books, so he published them in his tracts and the papers, which were free. And I remember people telling me that, they would wait for the mailman to come because the Khalsa Samachar was coming and they wanted to read it. And, my friend T. shares thing of Sikh Sheikh, he said, I grew up. As soon as that paper would come, my father would read it to us every night. I can tell you my mother-in-law would cut out his poetry and she gave me 8 black exercise books with cuttings of his poems from Khalsa Samachar. This was that reverence where people were starved for something and he was supplying that to them. I can only tell you that my books, Journey with the Gurus, is really Guru Nanak Chamatkar. I am a total fraud. This is not my work. What I have done is taken the way Pidaji has written the Chamatkar. I've cleaned it up, made it a little, put some pictures, made it easier in English, for the children to understand. And what the children say to me is, it looks like we are walking with the Guru. I said, that's exactly how I felt. The Guru became alive for me. I did not grow up in that tradition. Guru, when I came into Sikhi, is Shabad and still is Shabad. So the historical Gurus don't have that hold, but it is through Guru Nanak Chamatkar that I felt the Guru. I had the darshan through Bhai Mardana. And I am so badly stuck because I'm on my volume 4 and I'm on chapter 10. And it's been over a year. I haven't been able to go back because this is the chapter when I have to let go of Bhai Mardana, when Bhai Mardana leaves. And I have not been, it's been a very, very difficult time for me to write that chapter because he's my best friend. He's the one who made me see Guru. He's the one who says, you can see Guru. So that relationship, and I don't know when I will be able to get. These books have an incredible power. And you talk about, if anything, if you want to read just the opening chapter of Kalgidhar Chamatkar, it is the way Petaji writes of how Gobind Rai is coming. And he talks about the beauty. He talks about Venus, how what's happening in the celestial being for this being to enter. And it's actually magnificent. It's just, maybe we should have another session just to talk about the style of writing and how he, lifts us and puts us into a different world. Now, what does he tell us about himself? What he says about his own work? What he's basically, just look at the underlying ones. What he's saying is that you're not going to get a straight answer from me. He's not telling us what to do. That's not his job. That's the job of a preacher. E karo, o karo, nahi to e ho jayega. That is not a job for someone who inspires. What he's doing is he's capturing that experience for us so that to inspire us to want to experience that for ourselves. And that's what it is. He's bringing that fruit to you, that beautiful fruit in the thal. And he's saying, but you must eat it. And when you get the sweetness and the way you will write about it and the way you will speak about it will be that truth. So this is that magnitude of the man, but it's not about him. It's actually inspiring everyone else to think in that nature, to walk with him, because his entire thing has been that the Panth should rise. The Panth need that consciousness of the Panth. And the second thing is his breath, his current comes into life when lives are presented as they are lived, moving and vibrating and vibrant, engaged in their daily tasks, experiencing joys and sorrows, advancing, slipping, and then rising again. And this is that rising in love. Yes, you fall in love, but then how do you rise in love? That is what he's talking about. When you give up your ego, when you become larger than yourself and see that vastness, that is, he's giving you the wings. That's when you have the wings to fly and the courage to take up the most challenging tasks. And he writes in the last one about the history of the Guru Granth Sahib and the teachings. He says, these are an exposition. This is not word for word. It's an explanation. It's an inspiration. Go figure it out for yourselves. And this is in its own words what he is saying. So Sundari was his first novel, and he wrote it in 10th grade at the age of 17. My humble request would be, do not read it in the translation. Read it, listen to it. The audios are there. They're online. I would encourage you to just listen to the audio of it and be inspired by it. So where did he get? What did he write about Sundari and Satwant Kaur? Again, they are women. So this is what he writes. He says, the details of their lives, where did he get them? He got them from Gyani Gyan Singh, who wrote Pant Prakash, and from Ratan Singh Bangu, who wrote Twari Khalsa. Now, I don't know if many of you know who Ratan Singh Bangu was. He was the man when the British wanted to know, and this is, that imperialism, when the British wanted to know who gave the Sikhs the right to rule South Asia. And Ratan Singh Bangu goes there and answers that. He says, the Guru gave us that right. and then he writes a book about it. So these are the two people who Bhai Veer Singh Ji takes their accounts, because these are the Gursikhs who have lived that Gursikh life. They're immersed in that. So he takes their writings and he says, what he says is, I've created historical fiction. And why do we create historical fiction? Even today, when we can't say anything because the state will challenge us up, or there are people who will come after us. So authors find ways to tell the story in a way that will not incriminate them and will not get them into whatever it is. Keeping in mind, this is British imperialism, and he's actually regarded by the British as the most dangerous man in India. And I'll come to that. So this is where he has taken these. So he's taken these writings, he's based them on novels. And what was his purpose? Why did he feel he needed to do that? To instill Sikhi in the people. He really felt that the faith was, the people were in trouble and they needed to be inspired. And I can tell you that a lot of academia are criticizing his books because they feel that the way they've given
forward Dr. Omkar, can you unmute everybody?
Thank you, Ji. So they do not realize, the academia does not realize that what the Sikhs were going through at that time, there was so much chaos in the community. And when there is so much chaos in the community, you find different ways to get your message across. Some do it through novels, some do it through poetry, some do it through activism, some do it through institution building. But his basic message was how to instill Sikhi in the lives of the people. You know, there is right now, I mean, if I look right now, what is happening with the farmers' protest movement in India, how do the artists write? There are people who are writing incredible songs. I've written poetry on it. I've written articles on it, because that's the medium of expression of how do you tell that story in a way that will touch people who may not want to read, but who just want to hear a wonderful song, or who want to hear a poem that will move them. So he's applying every sort of means to get to that, to reach the people. So as if it was not enough, what his literature, but he was also very active. The Khalsa College in Amritsar, I am sure all of you are familiar. That is a building worth, I think this is the only building after the Guru period, never mind the Gurdwaras or the palaces, but is there any other Sikh institution in Punjab that we can say is standing and is of this magnificence? Well, this is his vision. He was the founder of that. That should tell you about the Sikh leadership and his vision for the community. It was not just literature. It was in every aspect of that life, which I want to talk to you about that. Yes, he was on the education committee, the Educational Society, and the Khalsa Tract Society, which I do want to get into a little bit, because a lot will come from that, what that is. So what was the Khalsa Tract Society? This was to fulfill that Singh Sabha objective. Keeping in mind, we are still in that movement. And he came up, its publication was called Nirguniara, which is the Gurbani's language, virtueless. None of the editorials carried his name. Think about it. And they printed everything what the message the Singh Sabha wanted to reach the masses, the Sikh masses, which Singh Sabha wanted to get. This was their means of reaching them. What is happening at the farmers' protest, the trolley times? How do people reach the masses with their message? This was that. So you are not, you can draw the parallel what this was happening. What else? It was, again, low cost so that everyone would be able to access it. And this was where, if you read the old editions, which have been all digitized, you will see the history, philosophy, the social and religious reform, everything, all the debates that took place, everything that happened is written through those things that is happening. These tracts also carried a lot of his own work of, tracts of Rana Surat Singh and Baba Naud Singh as well, because Baba Naud Singh chapters takes on the Brahma Samaj movement. He takes on a couple of other, the preachers, each chapter is devoted to actually a Jain thought, a Christian thought in a very unique way. So it's not that you feel that you're reading that, but after you've read it and you've read a few chapters that you get to this understanding, oh, this is what he's doing. This is where he's going. That's that subtle way of telling you that message. And it's incredible, I'm going back to Guru Nanak Chamatkar, and there's this one sakhi which I really want to translate, and it's not for the children, it really is for the adults. It's Nur Shah's. And he writes in that, which is much later, that when Nur Shah's palace breaks and the walls break, and what comes out of those walls is a Jaini, is a Buddhist, is all these other thoughts that come out, and then they come to Pacha, to Guru Nanak Sahib, and then there's a discussion. So what he is saying is that what Pidaji is saying is that when the Sikh thought came, that the Jain thought, the Buddhist thought, the Sufi thought, that every thought bowed to that thought. And there was that intense conversation. So in Guru Nanak Chamatkar, if there is one chapter for this understanding, this much deeper understanding, I would urge you to read or listen to the Sakhi of Nur Shah, which Pidaji has written. Sorry to digress, but when things connect and all this happens simultaneously.
Inni, I think there are a lot of questions. So if you could wrap up in next 2 or 3 minutes, I'll really.
I could do that. I will talk about Khalsa Samachar. He began this paper at, he was given a job with the, he was asked a job with the government, and he told his father, I don't want to work. I want to work independently. And his father said, what do you want to do? And he says, I want to start a press. And he says, well, I can't afford. I cannot give you any money. And he said, I won't ask you for any money. I would only ask you for food. So he went then to his Nanaji and told him the same thing. And his Nanaji said, well, if I give you 25 rupees, keep in mind what 25 rupees was, what will I get? He said, a third of the business. So he got 25 rupees. He bought his first press. He rented the first press. 3 months later, he bought his second press. 3 months later, he bought his third press. He didn't do any work. And then he rented all these presses, got enough money, and in 2 years began running the business. Now in Khalsa Samachar, that's his first paper and his editorial. He starts writing. He's 20 years old at this point in time. And this is what he says, why he began the Samachar, because it's the age of education, and this is the way to reach the masses. I can tell you about his humanitarian work. This is all the institutions that he founded. Activism, Punjab and Sindh Bank, co-founder, yes, we must have a bank. This is something which I want to spend 1 minute or so. This is that he is the most dangerous man in India. The British said, why? Because he knows all the head granthis. He has the masters. He's actually changing thought, and that is why he's the most dangerous man. This is what the British are writing to the head office in UK. So think about the power of this man. This is all his literature. This is just to overwhelm us. These are his medals, awards, which he has received. He was given the title the Sixth River of Punjab by Haridanath Chattopadhyay, who was the brother of Sarojini Naidu. So we know that this was an incredible being who has read literature and he said, this is that river. And the last tribute is by Puran Singh, which he says, a vulgar eye cannot see him. So to see Puran Singh, to see Pitaji, you have to have an eye that appreciates beauty, the sensitivity, and only then you will be able to see him. For he is a true man of the East. He is the one who opens your eyes and makes you fall in love with the beloved. And that is Gurbani. That it's not only about him, he inspires you to seek others. I'm sorry I went over, but this is a topic which is very, very close to my heart. And thank you for being so patient. I hope you have enjoyed listening to some of what I could share about Pitaji.
Beautiful, Panji, beautiful. So nice of you. You did a marvelous job.
I don't know.
You are
Thank you.
full of like a ocean. You are full of knowledge about it. And I think it will be best to have you once again, and we'll arrange for that. And I really, really want to have you on behalf of all the people who are sitting here. Now, there are some questions, and I'll start with Sardar DP Singh or Devinder Pal Singh. I think he's from Canada. I just happened to get in contact with him